Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. April 7th, 2026, 7:31 PM. Going to call the Town of Willington Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. Members present are myself, Bob Shavit, Stephen Troyer, Becca Sinoski. Right. All right. No applications for receipt, no public hearings tonight. Item E, new business, PZC 26-1 year renewal.
I want to do Wayne first. So
Sure.
Before he's only got
That'll
one.
work.
Thanks, John.
That was nice of you. All right, so we're gonna move over to item 5, PZC 26-5 1 year renewal of existing special permit per 315-15 for excavation and earth products at 66 Navarro Road, owner applicant W. Williams, applicant J. Patton.
I really didn't apply for that one.
I don't know why you're on it.
Not yet.
I think it- Never.
So you're gonna move 26-5
Yes,
up to the top?
up to the top, and then I'll start working as if number 1 is number 2.
Opie's is good in the checkout line.
It's not a public hearing for, we don't leave a notice to read everything verbatim. You can just read the application number if you want.
All right. All right, so Wayne, what's different? Anything?
No, just a renewal with no changes.
Any material or anything taken out in the last year? Nothing?
No.
Okay.
So you have everything in front of you, just so that it'll at least be captured in the minutes. The application, so you'll see in there, he included his narrative, he did have that there was nothing that was taken out. The original site plan is in there. And so just as a refresher, our regulations require that they come in for renewal. They can do a 1-year renewal without a public hearing or a 2-year renewal if they hold a public hearing. So that's why they come before us. So with some of these, it's just to keep the approval essentially active, even though there's no activity, they still have to come back.
I read through everything, it sounds like
Yeah,
pretty straightforward.
this one's very straightforward.
I'm good.
All right.
You need a motion also, please.
Yes. Would you like to make some?
Sure. See how simple. Do I have to read the whole thing, Mike, or
Just reference the application number.
I move we continue the special permit for PZC 26-5.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're all set, Wayne.
Okay, thank you very much. Stay
Okay.
warm. It's gonna be a little chilly in the morning. Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna move back up to PZC 26-1.
179.
Challenge note.
Which one are we on?
171.
171? Okay, that's, the office side. And, it was the site of the Santa gravel operation. Which we haven't really taken any gravel out of there for quite a few years now. But we are doing, beneficial reuse. We're basically filling it back in when we took out. And it was an active gravel pit for since the 50s up until 2010, 2012, somewhere around there. So about 60 years of material was taken out of there. So we're filling it back in. Last year, we brought in about 30,000 yards of material back in. And I wanted to go, I made a copy, because I wanted you guys kind of to be aware of what we do when we bring material in. All the material that's brought in, gets tested. And we do, so if somebody wants to bring material in, we send them out this application, this packet, which I hope Mike's sent to you guys, or just passed out to you guys. You got it, or?
There's general material, instruction for completing beneficial
Yes, okay.
soil request.
So so this goes out to everybody. If somebody calls up and say, hey, I want to bring material. So we send them out this, and we go through this. This tells you what the criteria is, how we get approval, and the sampling. So we don't take in, like somebody just has a load of stuff in the back of their truck, we won't take it. Everything that we take is planned. It's, there is an LEP that we'll sample, we'll take a sample of the material, whether in situ, basically in the ground as it sits, because it's a project, or if it's in a pile. We'll take that sample. And we require, for the first 1,000 yards, we require one sample every 250 yards for the first 1,000. And these are the test methods are on here. And then here, if you look, these are all the things that we're having them test for. And this is all based upon the state of Connecticut's Department Deep's criteria for residential direct exposure criteria, and for their what they call GA pollution mobility criteria, PMC. So one of them is stuff that's just in the ground. That's the residential direct exposure criteria, saying that you can have it on a residence, you can sit there, play with it, doesn't matter, it's fine. The GA, the pollution mobility criteria, is for stuff that has a possibility, if it gets wet, will travel. So those are you're kind of looking at two different things. So the two different criteria for that. And so we have them test for both, and we look at it for both. And the reason we do that is because we want to protect ourselves. So if there is a job, we want to make sure that the material that's coming here isn't contaminated. And we started doing this back in 2012 with this sort of criteria, because you can't tell whether something's contaminated by just looking at it. You have to get it tested. And we kind of go a little bit farther. When somebody's asking to bring material from a job, we'll have their environmental professional talk to our environmental professional, and we'll actually get a history of the site, what's been there before, are there any problems in the past. And we bring in a lot of stuff from like Yukon, Metropolitan District Commission, and some of the stuff a lot of stuff we bring in has the common name of what's called urban fill. Stuff that's been out there, it's been areas that are developed, so it's a completely clean? No. Because it's got stuff that's been from humans being around it for a long time. It's got some criteria, or some contaminants in it, but not a lot. So we make sure that everything's tested. Like I said, we do that to protect ourselves. And there's a lot of stuff that we say no to, but we've been doing it right now long enough that everybody knows what we take and what we don't take. The nice thing is that guys that might want to cheat the system don't even call anymore. Because they'll go to somebody else that doesn't monitor and worry about it. So we're kind of at a nice place where the guys that come to us are legitimate, the projects are legitimate, and it really cuts down on issues. And we do still say no at times, just because the stuff has one issue or another. And when we bring material in, we typically bring it in because, again, it's unsuitable. They're doing a project, like right now up at UConn, they're doing a project, building new apartments up in North Eagle Road. So there's a lot of material up there that they need to get rid of because they're putting in underground parking and everything else. So there's a lot of material that's gotta go. So if they want to do that, that material's gotta get tested, it's gotta get approved. And if it's okay, then they bring it to us. And that's kind of how we do it. And it's a relatively expensive project. Every one of those tests is like $1,500. It's not a cheap, it's not for the faint of heart for these guys to do this stuff. And we're asking them to do quite a bit. And the one interesting thing I found over the years, the only ones that we ever have problems with are state of Connecticut. Typically what we get was, what do you mean we got to test it? We test it. I'll get you a letter that says it's clean. That's great. I mean, we still got to test it. And after a couple of go-arounds of those, we actually said, all right, bring it in, but we're going to test it. You say it's clean, bring it in, we'll test it. We tested it. It came back, that was actually contaminated, even though we had a letter that says it was clean. So then we had to go through this year-long process of getting it off and having to bring it somewhere else. But it's just for whatever reason, the state of Connecticut, they do their thing. So that's how we're doing that. And we've got probably a good 30, 40 years to fill that back up. And by that time, probably we'll start, when that's done, we'll start across the street in the quarry. Actually, I won't. You guys probably won't be here either. Anyway, so that's where we're at on the office side. I just wanted you to know the fact that we kind of take this very seriously. And I think I've mentioned it in the past. This is not criteria that you guys set up. It's not something that was regular, just something that we thought was a good idea to protect ourselves and protect our neighbors. And I think that I'm waiting for the final report from our monitoring wells for this year. I have a draft of it yet, but I haven't got the final. As soon as I do that, I'll send it over to Mike for your records.
Any questions on 171?
I guess, so when you finish filling an area, John, you let grass start growing on it and then shrubs and stuff like that naturally, or do you cover it or seed it with something?
We haven't really gotten to a point where we have a section.
Yeah.
We have a lot of the old man took a lot of material out of there. God bless him. I mean, he did a lot of site work over the years. He did a lot of.
No, I'm looking across the street where the state brings all their sweepings and everything else, and they just keep piling up. And at some points, you think, "Oh, that must be it." No, they're in there. They level it off, and they're piling up a little bit higher. So I was just wondering if you had gotten to that.
No, we haven't. I think there's one area that we just kind of got into that's probably got another 15 feet of elevation, and we'll probably be at the old level. At that point, I don't know what we're going to do with it. I mean, quite frankly, at the point right now, if I flattened everything out, we could probably put an entire recreational complex there.
Yeah,
it's because at the end of the day, we're probably going to be at about 40 acres.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then we can make it however we want to make it.
Right,
How
yeah.
many years are you away from that?
For filling all that, oh, years, 30, 40 years, yeah. But there's one area, like one area we're at right now, I gotta bring that up.
Yeah.
It's, you can do that in stages, but, it's a lot of material taken out. And because we're a little bit fussy on what we take in, it doesn't happen as, if I just opened the floodgates and said, oh yeah, bring whatever you got, bring it in, we can fill it in a lot quicker. I don't want to do that though. Because you don't know what you're, as soon as you do that, you don't know what you're taking in. What would you say? I mean, originally, quite frankly, when I was many years ago, I was thinking about it. I almost wanted to put in put a forest in there, some trees that aren't necessarily, that haven't been around for a while, and intentionally plant trees that are some oaks and such that.
Well, in Europe, they plant forests, just like they plant nurseries here.
Yeah.
You know,
That's kind of where, well, that's originally, and again, this was probably, when do we have to do this? 2008, I think we started this. So whenever, I think that's, so basically 20 years ago, I was kind of like, you need to basically plant a forest there.
I guess it wouldn't be anything different than people plant an orchard.
Yeah.
It's a monoculture. Is that the best solution?
No, anyway, yeah, I wasn't looking for that. I was actually looking for something that would be nothing that I would ever see in my lifetime,
Yeah.
but.
Well, there's some pretty cool trees out there from around the world that everybody uses, not everybody, a lot of people use for landscaping.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get to be about that big, you stand back and it's like, wow. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about some old growth trees,
Yeah.
putting that in.
Yeah. I can see you with a bag of acorns out there, shoving them in the ground, John.
And I was a squirrel.
Yeah, you're like,
Any more questions on 171?
no.
All right, I gotta make a motion that we do a 1-year renewal of PZC 26-1.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Right, on to PZC 26-2. This is at 180 Talent Turnpike.
Okay, that's the quarry. Not much has changed. I think we lasted about 90,000 yards last year. And, we're at the. We're at the southern end of the quarry now, and I think the plan is to kind of stay down that neck of the woods for probably for the next 5 years. And we may come up, advance north a little bit, and then also east. We did get, I think that I submitted the water sampling for we have a permit from the state for the stormwater management plan, which requires testing. And I think in the submittals, I've got I submitted from September. We did all the sampling of the waters there, the different outflows. And for the pH and for zinc, we have to do it semi-annually, because those are above the benchmark, but they've been consistent now for a few years. So we're just going to, everything else, we monitor once a year for those.
It doesn't look like they're recommending anything different other than the sampling.
We're going to, just continue on with the sampling. And the DEP just changed their permit. I think so we just submitted a new application under their new permitting, their new stormwater management plan permit. So I'm not really familiar with all of the changes on that. But that's the idea. We're just going to continue. They didn't, the engineers didn't see any particular issue or problems. Everything seems to be holding up pretty well. We're not planning any drastic changes on anything. I think there haven't been any issues from the public that I know of, Mike. I don't know if anything's,
No, we haven't had anything.
we actually made it through mud season fairly well. Couple of days, it was a little touch and go.
No.
Make a motion.
I move that we do a 1 year renewal for the special permit for PZC -26-2.
All second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, PZC, that's 26-3. This one's 9 George Drive.
Okay, that's our processing plant for our wet plant, our wash plant. So we take the material from the quarry that we blast, haul it down to there, and then we crush it down there. We haven't done any extraction from there for many years. And that hasn't changed too much. We have a crushing station, we have 3 ponds, for the wash water, as well as taking water out of the Willimantic River for makeup water. No. Other than that, nothing's.
Does that water have to be tested then? Like the one on the shelf?
We haven't.
Being next to the Willimantic River, I'm just curious if
No,
deep
no,
says, hey, you gotta wash it.
not that I know of. We haven't. We've done some testing years ago just to see what was going on, but it doesn't go back into the river.
So it's like a concrete pond, it's not.
No, they're
It's a bedrock.
there's some bedrock in the ponds and some silt in there. So it's a gravel pond, but there's no outflow in that. They are connected, I can tell you that, because it does the level of the ponds will vary at times with the level of the river.
Just curious if you've got stuff up on the hill with water level, like your outflow water, if that water down there also shows any signs of the same thing.
Oh, I don't know. Because we're not actively changing anything. Most of our outflow is coming from like Route 32 and coming down, and we have a fairly good sized pipe right at the edge where the railroad tracks are. And that's all the stuff that comes down from Route 32 comes in there and then dumps in, and that actually flows into the river. And most of our water that we have, it kind of goes into the ponds. So I'm really trying to think if anywhere in there we have any sort of outflow into the river. Because in the pond water, most of the time when you wash stone and sand, you lose about 10%. So typically we'll be, we run at about 700 gallons a minute. We'll lose about 70 gallons, and usually the product absorbs it. on there. So a lot of times we take out the water out of the river, just to make up the water to recharge the ponds. And he's been doing that since the early sixties. There, but the ponds themselves are set up. So the wash, water that comes out of the plant goes into the first pond. Most of the silt settles there. And we actually add a flocculant to it too, to help it settle. And there's a second pond where that water will go, and that will capture anything else if it does go through there, if it's really laden with material and it goes through, the second pond will capture it, it'll settle out there. By the third pond, there's really nothing that goes in there, but then that's what we draw out of there. So we'll take the water out of the third pond, recirculate it back up. But all the water pretty much on the yard water, we pretty much have it drained into the ponds. So we do not have and we've never been told we have a need for like a stormwater
I was
management
just
plan.
curious because you are.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? It's a good question. I just we've never had anybody's come and say, yeah, you need one of those. And because we don't have any outflows, I don't know where we would test.
So the sediment that comes off of the stone and such goes up on the hill and into your reclamation project?
Eventually, yeah. First, like the silt, we dig it out of the pond, we actually move it on site, put it into another area, let it drain out, basically dry out.
Yeah.
That might take a year, 2 years, 3 years. Then once it's to the point where we take that, then we'll dig it and we'll bring it up. Yeah, bring it up top,
Yeah, okay,
up behind the office and dump it there.
yeah.
You test your own material?
Actually, no, I can't say we do. We don't test.
Well, you just said everything that comes in gets tested. I'm
Well,
curious
you know what? I can't even argue. Not wrong. We trust ourselves.
that-
Fair enough.
Any further questions?
No,
I'll make a motion for a 1-year renewal, PCC 26-3, that's 9 George Drive.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. PZC 26-4, this one's 328 Ruby Road.
Yeah, we actually haven't done anything. We haven't taken anything out this year. It's just as it was.
When was the last time anything was taken out of that?
It's been years, probably 15 years, if not longer. So,
The only thing that came across that property last year was a lot of timber.
a lot of timber. Well, someday I'm hoping to actually, put like a 4 million square foot warehouse up there, but
We haven't done it.
the meetings have been a little boring here, so I thought I'd.
Oh, man, you just probably blew the lid off. Stop taking that.
That'll spice our lives up.
No, we couldn't, no.
Yeah, that's been boring here lately. hasn't it?
That's not where FedEx was looking to put a parking area, was it?
No,
That was just,
That was the other piece that's just next to him.
there was talk about a long time, years back about maybe doing something with there. Yeah, the
Well, I mean, I would love to, quite all right. I mean, it's been designed industrial since the early 90s.
what's holding you back? No interest or?
It's a tough site. It's tough to build.
Yeah. 'Cause
Topography is just tough. There's, Mike's right. I mean, it really, we've looked at it and we've never gone and spent the money to do engineering. We were hoping somebody would just buy the property. But we've done some engineering on it, wetlands delineations and some preliminaries. Yeah. And then you got 400 acres right there. If we could end up with two buildings of 200,000 square feet each, it's about probably where we're at. Just the topography just doesn't And it's so expensive to build.
I think it's in Graham's growth here, so.
Well, yeah,
No, that would be, I mean, they would really be great, but it's Willington. Willington's just very difficult.
Hilly, rocky.
And it's, and you got a pretty good climb. And the other thing, we don't have the utilities here. So if you're gonna build something about that size, you gotta bring in your own water system, you gotta bring in your own septic system. If you're gonna bring in propane, you gotta put a propane farm in there. If you're gonna,
Yeah, a lot of
The
the
only-
older states, they sit in a farmer's, field, where it was
Oh,
a
yeah.
farm before, and there's a huge warehouse sitting there in flat ground.
yeah, the only thing we have going for us is the power over there. They've got sufficient power
Mm,
to do that, but the rest of it, someday I'm hoping, I really am. I'm tired of owning it, and it's the taxes not tremendous, but they're still $45,000 a year.
Is it actively out there, is it available?
I'm hoping we finally bit the bullet and spending some money on doing a feasibility
Okay,
study on it and doing some engineering on it to say, this is what it can handle.
Yeah.
So, I was hoping maybe, an 800,000 square foot facility would be great. There's some need out there for it, or some requirements out there for it. And you need something sort of that size just to handle the site costs.
yeah.
And that's the balance
Mm.
of doing that. But I don't even think it's not gonna handle that. It's between the wetlands and everything else and the cost of the cuts and fills to do something like that.
Yeah.
But I'll probably know more this year.
okay.
I would love to do it, love to get rid of it. And build something there.
Any questions on this one?
No,
Someone wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to renew PZC dash 26 dash 4 around the year.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All
Aye.
right,
Thank you.
all right, John.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you next year.
See you next year.
All right, no unfinished business tonight, brings us to item G, approval of minutes of March 3rd, 2026. We had a chance to take a look at them.
Yep.
Yeah. Hands.
Right there.
Is that a good night?
Take care. Sorry.
Do you want to take a look at them quickly?
Yeah,
All right,
it's the one with the, talk about the solar.
mhm. All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of March 3rd, 2026 as written.
I'll second.
Good. Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Right. No correspondence, Mike.
Nope.
Item I, public participation for items not listed on the agenda. If Diane's still up there, but nobody in the audience here, so I think we're good there. All right, item J, staff report and discussion. Item 1, multi-commission workshop, May 5th, 2026.
So at the last EDC meeting, one of the things that came up was the sort of paused tax stabilization ordinance. Matt, it was originally, did not pass at town meeting for, I think, a number of reasons. Matt wants to kind of bring it back around and bring a revised version before the town, as was sort of promised or agreed to or whatever at that meeting. So we had some discussions about it with EDC, but obviously there are implications between Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, this commission, and one of the things that I suggested is, and I don't know even if any of you had been familiar with it when it was, proposed several months ago, you remember now, but it had a couple of tiers, and depending on the business type and what was being requested, it sort of had different requirements for how it got approved. So some of the stuff involved, like I think Board of Finance would go to town meeting, and I think that one of the I don't know, observations, I guess, I'm trying to figure out a way to make this sound more eloquent, but I think that the ordinance as originally proposed, not because of any issue or problem or not taking issue with the work that was done, but it's largely unworkable from a business standpoint. No business owner that is making an investment of millions and millions of dollars wants to take a tax stabilization agreement between them and the town to a town meeting for a vote by residents. No, number one, there's too much risk, and number two, the particulars of those agreements, a lot of the financials that ultimately get vetted internally, there's a lot of work that goes into making sure that they're eligible, and ultimately the town saying, okay, we're comfortable in signing such an agreement. And I don't think that any business owner is going to want to participate in that if you have, sort of multiple boards involved in a town meeting that could comprise of any number of people. So, my feeling is that stabilization is helpful if you don't have anything, but stabilization is really applicable to high investments that are really heavy on the front end and then depreciate more quickly.
Well,
like
that's a solar field example.
But then there's also ag in there, and there's some other businesses which have additional layers of sort of review. But if you're spending that money to get a business off the ground, they're generally looking for an abatement. They're going to say our site costs are X, Y, and Z, or we have to, as John said, bring in water or sewer, or we've got to do all these improvements, none of which add value to the project, right? Spending $9 million to run a water line out of Stafford does not create value to the land. And so you can't stabilize that. The assessor isn't going to say, the assessor is not going to provide value because of the fact that there's now a water line in lieu of a well. So it's hard to say you can somehow stabilize that investment because it's not realized. We're not taxing them on the site work, the installation of a water line, community water system, or all these other things. So, I think if the town wants to get serious about figuring out what to do with the grand list, I think the conversation needs to include abatement. But I think more globally, the idea was to have a discussion amongst these boards to figure out what collectively the thoughts are, and if we're going to be proposing some revised ordinance through the EDC, that we sort of have a discussion amongst Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, EDC, PZC, to do a level set on what it had, concerns, questions, potential modifications. That's really the idea.
Mhm.
Trying to have a more combined effort with some of these things rather than the EDC is working on this or the Board of Finance, proposes that. So the suggestion, because you guys already have May 5th as a meeting, Mike is obviously on EDC, so he's available that night. The EDC would be available on that night. Could we have this meeting at your commission meeting on the 5th? Sort of invite them to come here to have that.
I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be in Milwaukee.
Okay.
I got a business trip that week, the entire week.
I'll jump for this.
That'll be good.
So the alternative would be to, we could certainly push it out, and Mike McCoo said he thought it was a really good idea and was obviously interested in participating, but that May 5th is the night of the referendum, and he didn't know if that would create.
I would move it to the next meeting after that.
Okay.
I think it's a valuable discussion to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
all right,
We have to do something here to
Yeah.
get ourselves coordinated and on the same page. And I'm with you, if everything goes to public referendum or whatever, nobody's gonna wanna have anything to do with that, especially if they're putting up millions of dollars.
Yeah,
no.
Yes, of course, and the businesses, that's what they wanna avoid.
Right.
They want certainty and they want like,
So one of my thoughts, and I don't know where this lands, was just in my head after the, solar people did their presentation. And it's sort of like some of the other things that we do, you know, you throw it out there, you think you've got all your bases covered, then you try to apply it the first time, and it kind of like, oh, man, we didn't consider that. How could we have missed that?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that came to my mind when they started saying, well, they're using high-end panels and it lasts 40 years. Well,
there hasn't been a single one yet, that's the point.
well, I know, but I mean, say what you want. That got me thinking. First of all, we're talking to these people. This company's going to come in and they're going to want to put this thing together. How long is that company going to be viable? And then you're dealing with a merger, so everybody can get bigger, or there's a lot
How
of,
do they honor it?
well, and that's the thing, and this is the thing that is gonna be brought up by the public. It's like, what happens if everybody goes bust? The town, quote unquote, is kind of out the money that is supposed to be continually coming in, and the operation is still on site on a person's property.
So in that situation, and I'm not gonna say nothing and never, because, you know, I would never say that, but it's just like if somebody stops paying their mortgage and gets foreclosed on, the town still taxes it. We're taxing it on the investment, whether it's the business or the personal, the building and the personal property. So even if the company goes bust, the project is still there, and so it's still taxed. And even if they went completely bankrupt and didn't sell or merge or whatever, the town, those taxes would be in the first position to collect, you know, from a lien holder's perspective. So I see what you're saying. If we give them a 50% break in first 2 years, if year 3 comes around and they fold everything up and walk away, we've now abated 50% of their tax bill. And how do we claw that back? And so, I mean, I think number one, that's part of what's covered in the agreement. But number two, there's still value to what is, there's still value to what is on the property.
But value in parentheses.
Yeah.
It's almost like if they had come through and they built a 1.5 million square warehouse, and all of a sudden they said, yeah, we're out of here. Well, yeah, the town has ownership of a 1.5 million square foot warehouse.
Have a heck of an indoor soccer.
But we would still tax it and they would still have to pay it. And if they didn't pay for 2 years, then the town tax sales.
So the only thing that why I bring these things up, I've had conversations with various
Yep.
people in town,
Mhm.
and I mean, the town is at a point right now where it's like, we need all the revenue that we can get.
Yep.
Now.
Yep.
And my point was, okay, but first of all, there's certain instances like battery storage and solar production, where if the state moves to make them tax exempt, well, we're really holding our hands on our butt then.
Mhm.
And when someone comes in and just with a general conversation and says, well, if we put this in, of course, we're going to be asking. And it's good to hear that up front.
Mhm.
So you don't have to run around last minute. Oh my God, what are we going to do? The issue that I try to make is when they say, oh no, that's not, we need to get our biggest part out as soon as we can. But by not spreading it out. That could be the difference between them coming and not coming.
It is. There,
I mean,
To your
that's
point.
simple, but that's the point that needs to be brought forward. And in that conversation, people will say, yeah, well, how about Amazon warehouse and they'll name someplace.
Well, they didn't tell you what it's gonna be when they develop.
No,
it.
they don't.
use
But what their point is that these things are already built. And it's like, well, yeah, now that, before we build it, we need 10 years before we start paying taxes.
Mhm.
And I says, well, this isn't like we're saying no taxes for 10 years. We're just taking and spreading out the taxes evenly over the lifetime of the project, which it's a lot different.
people assume that they're thinking about it, to your point, because that comment came up to me when I presented, we want all of our money now, we can't afford to wait years to get it. But they're assuming that they have the option between our money now or later.
And it's not the
It's
case.
now or you
Yeah,
don't
or we're
get it.
not building it here.
Right.
That's right, yeah.
If,
That's where abatement comes in.
yeah. I mean, the town of Windsor gave that BDL4 project, the Amazon warehouse, which is 4 million square feet. It was north of $100 million abatement. It still pays taxes on over $200 million. So you get to this point where they need to be able to make the numbers work, but you're still getting a whole lot more than what was there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I
And you
think there's-
probably can borrow as well against the stuff that's further down the line. I don't know for sure, but.
Well, there's other mechanisms levers that the town has that they could pull, one of which is TIF. And so, yeah, TIF allows you to do certain things with monies that are generated through increased revenues. And so you can do stuff like go out and get debt. You can enter into credit enhancement agreements and build infrastructure and whatever. But I think the conversation is a little bit misguided. And I think that this is leading me to that one of the benefits of this sort of multi-agency
Mhm.
discussion can be to explore the friction points that we expect to come up so we can proactively plan answers.
The EDC study and this whole idea of Willington getting on board with an EDC project also is going to come with a lot of educating the public. Because everybody is used to the way things have been with small businesses paying upfront all their taxes, every year, just like the homeowners do.
Mhm.
And it's going to be a struggle. I really believe it's going to be a struggle.
Unfortunately, small businesses aren't gonna make the revenue.
No, not at all.
They're just not. They're nice, they're nice to have in the community.
It's like an amenity.
Hopefully people
Yeah,
support them,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's just not what's gonna drive these expenditures that need to be
No.
made in this town that people keep bringing up, schools, firehouses, things like that. You gotta pay for them somehow.
That's why I try to engage people when I can to see what their take is and then try to go down that, that rough road in trying to explain that it's not an option. Well, the option is to work with them or not have the project at all.
Right.
And some people don't understand how land use works either. I remember like when the big warehouse was going, it should go to referendum, whether we can do it. No, it's
No.
private property being sold, there's land use, there's laws and different things that go along with it. We have our regulations and so forth. It's not as simple as, and the same people that say that if it was their property, they wouldn't want, some entity saying, well, everything you do is going to be voted on by everybody. Yeah, that's not the way it works.
Yeah, we in a town not far from here, I just saw the initial numbers of the 280 unit residential apartment development over a couple of buildings with a small commercial component on a separate building. Nothing swanky and fancy and really high end or anything like that. And their assessment will be in the neighborhood of $55 million. Right, so when you apply the mill rate to that assessment, it is a substantial increase. And we're not talking about truck traffic, we're not talking about this or that, it's apartments, low numbers of children into the school. So there's a lot of ways that the town can get there, but they are absolutely asking for an abatement. For them, they're connecting to sewer, and so they're having to pay $7,000 per unit. So their connection fees are seven figures just to connect to sewer.
What town is this?
East Windsor. So it's the same idea, you know. Love's, I think they had somewhere in the name of, what was it, $30 million in site work to get that building ready to go.
Mhm.
That property's not worth that.
No,
So they blew all that money to make that project viable, which is why the stabilization is hard, because year one, they're gonna say, okay, my investment is $50 million, but we're gonna be looking at a tax bill that doesn't even value the property at half of that. So we can't abate that money that they've outlaid. And that first couple of years is when cash is obviously super tight.
Mhm.
So I think that, yeah, we need to, I've been really struggling with how do we have this conversation in a way that the people that speak the loudest at these meetings will have the information so that we can be sort of on a level playing field. And I think we just need to kind of keep having it. And
I think it'll help people get to understand that these are multiple departments working on this, as opposed to just, oh, well, you know, planning and zoning is working on it, but they don't know what EDC is doing, and, you know, but if the selectmen can get involved in this process, and then it's just a matter of trying to, you know, what the town struggles with is better communication to the general public.
yeah. So I will circle back around with Mike and then EDC, and we'll try to.
Yeah, if you can move it to the meeting a couple of weeks after the 5th. That would be
Yeah.
better.
I'm gonna stick to one of the PZC's regular meetings, and then I'll just figure out when we can get everybody else. So we'll just plan for that, and I'll just schedule it based upon what their availability is. So you'll see that.
What about bringing up SDZ again?
So that's one of the things that's on the EDC's radar and through their strategic plan at their meeting in March. I gave them the original copy of the SDZ and we started talking about it. So they very much want to push it forward and again, sort of reignite those conversations. But obviously, with the exception of Mike, like making amendments and talking about the nitty gritties of that stuff are a little bit more complicated. So maybe we can work that into the discussion when they're here to talk about tax. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about that. I think they're ready to go, and it's come up here, obviously.
Just a newbie question, what is SDZ?
Oh, if I have a copy. The SDZ was a strategic development zone regulation that the EDC wrote and we adopted, which is, I don't know how to word it. A lot of people think that that's what facilitated the warehouse. It is the path the warehouse came to us from, but they didn't come because of it. It was designed to create two mechanisms for approval, one of which allows them to submit a concept plan for the commission to review. And then if they approve the landing of that zone via the concept plan, then they come back. So it was meant to create more of an incremental. The benefit to them is that they don't spend $500,000 on engineering. The benefit to the town is that we can say, well, what about this? What about that? And because they haven't spent that money, they're more likely to want to play ball with the design of the development. So it was essentially eliminated after the warehouse was proposed and has been sitting in purgatory since.
No good deed goes unpunished.
So I think there's been a lot of discussion about bringing it back around and then tweaking.
We'll just change the initials.
We could do that.
Well, it didn't fail, that project got voted down and,
Right.
and it wasn't because of, or because it was there, the SDZ, it had nothing to do with it. It was just, that's.
Well, it's one of those things that we took some time, I don't know, it was months, talking about it and trying to understand everything. And it seemed okay. And then all of a sudden, the first project that landed on it was the elephant in the room. And it was like, oh, holy shit. You know, and it was almost like, and you know, I've talked with Mike about this. It was what, 30% engineering on it? So, I mean, a 1.5 million square foot warehouse, all of a sudden you get an inch of rain, you get 1 million gallons of runoff. And it was like, well, and then you start asking, you know, questions of the developer. It's like, well, how is this going to happen? It's like, well, we're not at that stage yet. So it's almost, if we go and we revisit, there's certain things I think that we have to massage into that to address something that's bigger than anticipated, so that those questions can be answered earlier on, as opposed to, oh yeah, we're good with 30%. Well, no, because and that was our first time out with it. So, I mean, the questions that.
There's gonna be a learning curve with any of these things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Their plan was bullish. They would not have built 1.5. They would have been happy with 1, but probably would have been something less. But you don't want to have an approval for X and find out that your client wants X plus.
Right.
So they were shooting high. But yeah, I mean, I think the other thing we can do is make clear that the 30% consent plan is meant to help the commission decide whether or not it's appropriate to land the zone. It doesn't actually create any implied approval, so that when they come back around with their site plans, if they can't answer that stormwater question, doesn't mean that you are now then, you know, it's a sure thing that you're gonna get a 1.5.
You're not obligated to continue on.
Right. It was just meant to create a situation where the commission would have more information than just a zone change. Oh, we want to change the zone from R80 to design commercial. Well, why? Well, we want to do commercial building, right? That's normally what we would ask them for.
Yeah.
The idea was to make them sharpen their pencil a little bit more, and so the commission could make an informed decision about, do we want to change the zone? Not to make them feel as though they were already sort of pre-designed. And I think there are some ways to do that, so.
And there's gonna be a lot of questions from the public about that again, we revisit it.
Yeah. We're just looking, it's 4 years ago that.
That's right.
You want to, 4 years ago that application came in. It's crazy to think it was that far long ago.
That flies.
All right, so I will get that
So we have
coordinated.
item 2, required zoning amendments for special session 25-1.
So we talked about this a little bit before, and I just wanted to sort of throw this out to you as sort of the next step. We have to have something on the books by July, which means that we basically have to have something kind of refined and ready to go in May, so we can schedule a hearing in June, and we can have something adopted approximately in July. Just to sort of refresh, the Special Session Act 25-1 requires that towns allow housing of 2 to 9 units needs to be allowed by right on any lot zoned for commercial or mixed use. So that becomes effective July 1, which means we can't have a public hearing, can't require a special permit, can't require a variance, and all of the standards have to be non-discretionary. They have to be yes or no. Shall have a setback of 25 feet, shall have a buffer that includes 3 shade trees and 2 evergreens. Nothing discretionary, nothing touchy-feely, fluffy, or sort of unclear. So obviously all the towns that we staff are doing this because it's statewide, and we have an on-call with a couple of the COGs to do this for their town. So we're working through this all over the place. And basically what we have come up with, and this is sort of my massaging this to sort of start trending in the direction of what I think will work here, what I'm suggesting. 1, 2, 3, 4 is something that takes more of a form-based approach. So I'm going to hand out, this is sort of a template or the structure. Don't get really focused on the nuts and bolts because there's still a ways to go, but I just wanted to give you an idea of the layout of what I'm, again, sort of thinking about and what I would suggest we consider. So it's set up like a traditional regulation in that first page talks about where it's applicable, what's the intent, what are the terms, what's the process. And then as you turn into the larger pages, it gets into the standards. And so what I've done is on the left-hand side, you'll have the bulk table, which talks about all the criteria that they need to meet. And then we have 3 columns for the 3 zones. On the right side, it gives sort of architectural renderings of the style building that we would intend they construct. So we can't say shall incorporate architectural style consistent with a New England village, because nobody knows what the hell that means. But we can tell them that it needs to have a peaked roof, it needs to have a bay window, it needs to have whatever. So the idea here is to capture the intent through these renderings to sort of clearly explain that. I've created 4 categories which align with the act. So the first is sort of the duplex, triplex, 2 to 3 units. The second is for the multiplex. So that's essentially 4 to 9, because right, we're capping out at 9 units. That's what the bill requires. The bill also says we have to allow cottage clusters, which is the 3rd page. So it gives you, again, some example building types and then a configuration to show what that might look like on a lot. And this is just to, again, help get people there. It's not meant for them to have to build exactly this thing. And you'll notice on the left, so we've got obviously the traditional setbacks, but then I'm also tying to building width so that we don't end up with buildings that are 100 feet wide and sort of look like a couple of mobile manufactured homes that have been stacked on top of each other, real long building walls. We're capping the unit sizes again so that they're more in keeping with what would make sense, requiring separation from accessory buildings, encouraging shared parking. And then the last one, which is D, the 4th large page, conversions. So the bill is, I mean, it's poorly written, it's terrible. We could talk for weeks about how stupid this was for Hartford to have made this decision, but we're here.
Would this be considered affordable housing, this stuff?
So it could be if they deed restrict, but we can't require it. So if they chose to deed restrict it, yes, it could qualify. But what I expect most towns are likely to see, and maybe not so much here, is commercial conversions, because you may have an existing commercial building that just isn't working for one reason or another. And so now they're saying, oh, well, I can get 9 units, right? Because we also can't tell them the density. So I can't say you got to have 5,000 square feet of lot size for every 1 unit. I have to allow them anywhere from 2 to 9 units on any lot zone for commercial mixed use. And we have no control on density.
Unless you're on the option here, Phelps.
Phelps, they could do, well, I mean, anything in that. I mean, someone could convert Dollar General if they wanted to.
Yes.
Right, it's not, but they could do that. And so that's why we're trying to get to the design standards to really make sure that you don't end up like, you know, with some random building, just someone taking a unit at Phelps and saying, oh, we're gonna make this an apartment now. Some of that stuff we can't control, but to the extent that we can, we're gonna try to.
Wilderness.
Hmm?
The old wilderness.
Oh, yeah.
So the other thing that we cannot do is deny an application because we feel that there is not adequate parking. So we can tell them they need 1.5 spaces per unit. And if they're supposed to have 10 spaces and they only provide 7, we can't deny them for it. That is because essentially communities were making the parking standards the barrier to, we allow these things. But
So where do you park then if you don't have enough spots?
Well, I think the idea is
So you rent
largely
out.
that it's regulated. If you want to try to rent units out, people need a car to live in that building. They're not going to pay your rents if they can't park there. So, you have some ability to regulate it because we could prohibit on-street parking because it's a town's road. So essentially we can't deny it for that.
This is similar to the EDU thing that we went through, a couple of years ago?
ADU, yeah.
EDU, sorry.
Yeah, it is similar. And So we had the right to opt out of that language and develop our own rather than just going with the statute. This doesn't have an opt-out provision, so they're basically come July 1, whether you do anything or not, they have to be able to come in here and either go to the commissioner's staff and say, here's my thing, I meet all the criteria, here's my site plan, I want my permit.
So what criteria also means in our town, they need to have enough area for septic
Oh, yes, of course, yeah,
and separate from septic and water
Yes.
source.
yes, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
So, and then I'll just point to the last pages, the smaller pages, which talk about materials. So again, we're trying to explain what materials and building elements are required, talking about fascia boards, building modulation, shutters, pilasters, again, all things that we're asking to be incorporated. We talk about roof types to try to avoid just sort of like a commercial building with a flat roof. Unit configuration, I added language in there to talk about, so something that seems to be coming up more and more is storage. A lot of people feel like when these multi-unit developments are constructed, they don't contain items or space for personal storage. And so what ends up happening is you see storage of things maybe on balconies, or, that's where your bike is and that's where your other stuff gets stored. And so we're requiring that they provide place for storage. And also I had put in there that laundry be provided in unit, because I think asking people to live there, they don't have laundromats really nearby and other places. So, and then we just get into landscaping and lighting, which is all very similar to what we would expect or see. But I'm, again, having to explicitly state what they need to do, because we can't just say shall have appropriate landscaping. And we can't say, well, you've got a use over here, we think there should be some more buffer. So can you add some plantings here? Can you install a fence? We can't have that conversation. So we're trying to just really in a prescriptive way. So I wanted to put this in front of you just as an idea of how I'm suggesting this be taken. The idea would be to present a more comprehensive draft in May. That will not be perfect, and we really are not going to have the time that we might normally take on something like this, but because we're sort of in a position of having to have something for July, the goal would be to get this as close as we think it can be, schedule the hearing, have the hearing in June, have something in place, and then we can continue to refine it. But I think that our regulations rely heavily on the special permit. We're gonna have a public hearing, we'll hear from the audience, we'll talk to the applicant, the commission will add specific conditions and standards and modifications, and all that stuff is non-existent now. So we have to kind of establish, a new wheel for this process.
Okay.
So you're welcome to keep this. I need, it's got a lot of additional work that I need to do to kind of move some of our current standards into these tables. But if you think that we're headed in the wrong direction with taking a more form-based approach, tell me now and we'll shift.
I think it's a good way to be prepared for something not that well defined right now. I think that was made pretty clear when we had the session online with you folks.
Yeah, and Prague is paying a lot of attention because they're not necessarily fully sure on all these things. We have to develop these housing growth plans, which they're in charge of. They've got to issue us numbers of what our unit targets are going to be. And so this is a template which we're starting from in many of our towns, because so few people know what the bill actually says, and none of the cogs are willing to state unequivocally what they believe it says, that the approach that a lot of planners are taking is, if we can be consistent in what we all believe it says, then if you go to Vernon, Ashford, Tallinn, Willington, Ellington, whatever, and they've all taken the same approach, we're not going to be arguing amongst different communities about what we think it says. So, we're recommending something similar in Mansfield, recommending something similar in Vernon and in Ashford, because I think this is the way to define something that's ambiguous, is by creating a form.
Options.
Yeah, and also showing them what the expectation is, rather than leaving it up to them and having them roll in with something and say, here's what we think, it needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So come July 1, any commercial building in town and any building in South Willington will be eligible for conversion. for up to 2 to 9 units.
I think that's a great idea.
So that's where we're headed. State thinks they know more than we do.
How are they doing with the barn down in South Willington?
The barn,
The old dairy barn? You know, they was gonna.
Next to the firehouse.
the one that was coming up, the one that was coming over, is that the one? We had a barn recently that was collapsing into the road.
No.
No.
This is the one at,
Oh,
right by the fire, South Willington,
Yeah,
on the left-hand
I
side.
had an ice house years ago or something.
he got the approval to convert it to a single residential unit. Because prior to the South Williamson Village Zone, it was R80.
Right, they've been living in there for years.
Yeah, so like when I was first here, there was an issue, someone was living in there, and so he got it
There's a bunch
converted.
of people living in there.
Yeah, to a single unit. It's not apartments or anything.
Oh, well, I'm talking, well, that's the big barn on Depot Road, on the corner of Depot Road. The next one
Oh,
up,
the tavern?
what used to be Jerry's Tap.
Yeah. So, that he got approval for and, to do the fire pump system necessary to put the sprinklers in, it was a 6-figure price tag. He thought he could get the tank high enough that would gravity feed the sprinkler system,
Yeah,
and it just isn't gonna work, so he needs to do a fire pump. And so that was like $150,000 unplanned expense, and when you're talking about 4 units, I don't know that they had to do a firewall between that back portion and the middle portion because it's a garage.
yeah.
So the building code requires they be separated. And I don't know that he ever was able to get there. So we have not heard from him.
I see a lot of stuff stockpiled in the front of the building,
Yeah,
you know, for a while now. And they started working and all of a sudden that stuff appeared.
they did all the soil testing, the septic stuff, tried to get a plan pulled together. They hired an architect. They did investigation inside the building and we're this close. But I don't know. I don't know if they found a workaround for that.
Yeah,
And the solution is water,
right. Oh,
right?
yeah.
That water line that came down Depot and went right, went left,
They'd be all set.
they'd be all set.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, just curious.
8:43 PM, meeting adjourned.
Okay.